Whether you're outside grilling, changing diapers, or just trying to catch a breath, the Young Dad Podcast is your spot for real conversations about fatherhood, manhood, and everything in between. I'm your host, Jay, and I sit down with dads, experts, and everyday men to talk about the joys, the struggles, and the lessons that come with raising kids and building a meaningful life. From mental health and relationships to faith, family, and the funny stuff only dads understand. YDP is here to remind you that you're not doing this alone. So grab a juice box, grab a snack, kick back, and join the conversation because fatherhood doesn't come with a manual, but it should come with a podcast. He had it all: the career, the house, the family, the image. Then, in his mid 30s, Josh lost everything: divorce, addiction, identity collapse. Most men would have stayed down, but Josh didn't. He fought, he failed, and then he rebuilt. Now he's using that story to help men all over the world do the same: rebuild their faith, their finances, and their families, one hard truth at a time. This isn't a self help story, but it's a spiritual knife fight. So, whether you're outside grilling, mowing the lawn, changing dirty diapers, or maybe you finally got a moment to sit down, relax, and listen to your favorite podcast, thanks for being here and thanks for tuning in. Today's guest is Josh, husband, father, author, and mind behind the gospel of an ex derelict, the fight, fail, rebuild. After losing everything in his 30s, his marriage, his money, and his identity, Josh had to learn how to rebuild his life from the ground up. He's now a certified financial planner with nearly 20 years of experience, a men's performance coach, and the host of the Derelict podcast, where he helps men face failure, confront the truth, and reclaim purpose. Josh doesn't sugarcoat the pain, he redeems it. Today, we're diving into what happens when a man's world burns down, how to rise from the ashes stronger, humbler, and more grounded than ever before. So make sure you have your juice box, make sure you have your snack, and let's jump into the conversation today with Josh. Josh, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jay. Thanks for having me, man.
Of course, man. All right, so you got a great story that I
I
want to dive
appreciate that.
into.
Even though I think I heard you say that I'm a husband, and I just want to point out that I'm not a husband. I was a husband at one
Was a
point.
husband.
Was one, yeah.
Yeah, former husband.
Yeah, I that was a great intro. That was a great intro.
Thank
It's a
you.
lot for me to live up to on this podcast. I'm excited about it.
Oh no, it's just the average bar, you know, just an average Josh. Just kidding. Uh,
Just joshing around.
we're
Yeah,
just gonna be joshing around today. Yeah, that was my next joke. Thanks, Josh, for stealing
yeah,
that from me.
yeah. I've
But
never
no,
heard that one before in my life,
never. I
and
sure it
I'm
was the
pretty
first
much
time.
the only Josh that's in my low 40s, right? Because Josh wasn't a popular name at all.
Not at all. Um, let's go back through your story. You're in your 30s. You literally had all the things that the world says that success is, right? Career, house, family, image, but then you lost everything: divorce, addiction, identity collapse. What happened?
Sure. So let me paint the picture a little bit. So I'm like you said, I'm in my mid 30s at this point in my life, and I had built a really successful business. I still am a financial planner. I've been doing it almost 2 decades now. So at that point, I'd been doing it for since like 22 years old. I basically did it right out of school. I had a mortgage company for a while with my dad, and I learned how to do business ownership at a very young age. Anyway, I found a lot of success there. Ended up being in, the best school district, the best suburb of Portland, Oregon, with the nicest houses. I was on a double dead end street with a nice big house and, nice cars. I had just bought my first muscle car, had a Dodge Challenger and several other cars that were just like really nice. We're living a good life, man. Like I had a beautiful wife, 3 kids, like just amazing, right? Everything about it was, like you said, what the world would see as success. I was a member of the Rotary. Everyone in town knew me. Everyone kept joking that I should be the next mayor, that I should run into politics. And I probably would have. I was very active in my church. I mean, I was the guy, like I was the middle-aged white guy dream, right? The American
Yeah.
dream. I didn't have this beard because I was much more legit back then.
So you still weren't living up to you were obviously missing something. That's why.
Yeah, I used to be really buttoned up. Used to wear a 3-piece suit all the time. Didn't have the beard. Very much the financial look. If you've seen any sort
Yeah.
of financial
Yeah.
movie, right? like Wolf of Wall Street or any of them.
Yeah,
I mean,
clean cut, shaved, three piece suit, hair
yep,
high and
played the
tight.
part, had the same attitude, had the same chameleon appearance now. Like I wouldn't have called it chameleon back then, but it was. Definitely had a stick up my ass for sure. Just like very serious, like go get stuff done, etc. Right. And what I didn't realize is that I was slowly dying inside. I mean, I really didn't. I really thought my life was good, man. I really did. I thought that the marriage was great. I literally thought that I had a marriage that everybody else looked up to. That's how, what's the word to say? I mean, just full of myself I was.
Yeah.
Like, I looked at our marriage and I was like, look, this is what everybody wants. Like, this is perfect. This is wonderful. All of these relationships, everything else. And it's amazing when you go through something difficult, like whether it be a divorce or a big health scare or anything else, when you see not only who are your true friends, but who you really are, if you pay attention. Because to your point, there was other aspects of my story. So it all kind of started when I had this just a bad experience. I went on a business trip to Vegas and ended up getting really drunk and ended up kissing a woman. And that's as far as it went. But it was everything that I said I would never do in my life. Like I was a very faithful, loyal husband. There was never any issues. I was with my wife for a very long time. I mean, honestly, got married a virgin. Like it was her. Like that was my life. Right.
Hmm.
And it took me a long time after that to figure out like, why did I do that? And I realized it was because I was just slowly dying inside. I just didn't feel like I was actually living my true authentic self at all. I had built this facade about who Josh was and about who Josh's family was and everything else. I lost myself, man. I really did. I lost myself. And so from there, I went into therapy. I went into 12 step. I went into all this addiction recovery. I went into all of this stuff, spiritual coaching, like you name it, I did it. And I did all of these things thinking that that one event was what was wrong with me. Like I cheated, so to speak. Right.
Hmm.
And now I need to figure out what is wrong in my life. And I was doing all these things and I really was starting to heal and I was starting to get better. And I was like, oh, I'm understanding now. I'm starting to get back with myself. This is the first time I'd ever went to therapy and learned about myself and learned about my trauma and learned about my childhood and all that sort of stuff that helped me do that. Right. And so then, picture this next part, right? So I'm doing all this stuff. I think that my wife is on board at the time. We're even going to marriage counseling and everything else. And then I don't realize it until later that she never really was on board. It was just kind of the part that she was playing. And I can't speak for her. That's her own story.
Hmm.
But I remember the day that I got served divorce papers and I was surprised by it. I was like, oh, what is this? Because I really thought that we were making it work. I was literally doing everything possible that I could to try to save the marriage. And the moment I got served papers, man, this is important for people listening. When you go through something, this is maybe the most critical thing I'm going to say all day. When I got served papers, I realized instantly that all the work I had been doing on myself was for her. It was for my marriage. It was for my family. It wasn't for me. Now, some people might hear that and they think, well, that's great. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be selfless and you're supposed to serve. And I
Yeah.
agree with all those things. However, you can't do it for somebody else. It's never sustainable, whether it's an addiction or it's something that you're trying to stop. I don't care if this is, addiction to alcohol or drugs or sex or porn or shopping or relationships, or since a lot of your listeners are men, work. Listen,
Yep.
guys, the majority of the guys that I coach are addicted to work. Now, being addicted to work might have less negative consequences than being addicted to heroin, for sure.
Yeah.
It's going to change your body differently, but is it? Because most people will say that, but then they don't really think about it.
Yeah.
And the
No, I know where
guys that
you're
get
going.
addicted to work actually sometimes are unhealthier than the guys that are addicted to heroin.
Yeah.
So don't fool yourself just because society says work is good and you're supposed to work and you're supposed to be a workaholic. Don't fool yourself that that's the right thing to do. Just like you shouldn't fool yourself that being a codependent love addict is the right thing to do, even though every song and movie and story out there is about doing that, right?
Yeah. No, no, 100%. And I love what you're saying here about um, the work, right? Doing the work and who you're doing it for and why you're doing it. Because it's true whether it's for its addiction or whatever kind of addiction it is, right? Whatever you're trying to quit, whatever you're trying to stop, it's so important to make sure that you need that extrinsic motivation to kind of get you in the door of these different places, whether it's going to a therapist or going to a 12-step program or going to, whatever it is, right? That's where the extrinsic motivation comes in and plays a huge part, right? That can be your initial motivation for going to the place. Okay, I want to do this for my family. I want to do this for my marriage kind of thing. But while you're there, you really have to find truly the intrinsic motivation on the other side of that. Why are you doing it for you? Yes, you have other people that pushed you there, but now you actually have to do this work and you actually have to learn it for you and apply it for you, not just for those around you. Because you can apply it for those around you, but doesn't make as much of an impact. I guess what I'm trying to say, if it's
A
not
100%,
genuine.
brother. 100%. And let me just like, maybe this is a good way of clarifying it. So let's just use this as an example. So, like I said, I was really doing it for my family, for my wife, for my children. Okay. Versus doing it because I want to be a better husband
Hmm.
and I want to be a better father. Do you see the slight difference?
Yeah, big difference there. That's
So,
intrinsic motivation.
yeah, it's just it's not a self-centered narcissistic focus. We got to be really careful. I'm not saying it so that I can become the best person in the world and no one else should ever do anything because I'm just the best, right? That's not what we're saying here. What I'm saying is it's again, it's a small difference. But instead of me doing it for my family, it's so that I'm the best family man I can be. It's so that I'm the best husband I can be. It's so that I'm the best father I can be. Because that's the only true motivation. Now, the effect is the same, right?
Yeah.
If I'm doing it for my wife versus I'm doing it to be a good husband, the effect is the same. Because if I become a great husband, guess what? My wife's going to feel it. If I become a great father, guess what? My kids are going to feel it. But if I'm only doing it for them, the biggest problem is that when that either isn't returned or it's not validated or you're not seeing the effect, or God forbid, like my wife, they leave, then what? So let's go to the next part of my story. Because I was doing it for her, because I was doing it for the family, when she served me the papers and she left and she's like, peace, I'm done. Guess what happened? I fell apart, brother,
Yeah. Respiraled.
because I didn't have any motivation to do it for my, because I wasn't doing it to be a good husband. I was doing it for her. See the difference? If I was doing it to be a good husband, even, and she left, guess what? I could still work on being a good husband because maybe in the future I'll be a husband again. That's the difference. So the moment that happened is the moment I spiraled. And real quick backstory. I grew up in a very conservative Christian home. I was very much a goody two shoes growing up. I never really got into any trouble. I always got good grades. I did well. I was respectful, all that sort of stuff. So I never really experimented with any sort of like teenage things. Not very many. I mean, they were mild compared to a lot of people. So the moment this happened, though, I was like, something clicked, and I was like, okay, apparently I'm not doing this anymore. I still kept going to therapy, but for whatever reason, I stopped everything else. I stopped 12 step. I stopped the coaching. I stopped everything. I was like, forget it. I'm just going to go live my life. And I felt like a teenager. So now I'm in my mid 30s with money, successful, acting like a 19-year-old. Bad combination. Bad combination. It's really bad combination when you have the money,
Yeah.
because that's when the sex and the drugs and the partying and all the stuff started for me, really for the first time in my life in my mid 30s. And I'm not going to lie, it was a blast for a while. It was. There was about about a 9-month window specifically, I would say the biggest chunk of that. So right when I, got served papers, then I fell into this relationship with this other, wow, I just really
I was
zoomed
about
in
to say
there.
you just zoomed in real hard on you.
What just happened?
That's
That
because
was
he's in
weird.
his early 40s, guys. That's
It is because I'm in my early 40s and I just got this new camera and apparently I don't know
Oh,
how to use
okay.
it yet.
No, you're
So that's
good.
funny. So, right after I got into this other relationship and it was very love addicted, I thought I was in love with this woman and I was just head over heels for her, all that sort of stuff. It wasn't. It was because I didn't do any sort of healing or just wait or process. So this is another quick note, just as a part of my story. Of all the men that I've coached, and I also interviewed a bunch of people for a book that I wrote last year, is talking about the 5 traps when going through divorce and how to avoid them. And when I interviewed everybody, I said, what was the biggest mistake that you made going through your divorce? Any idea what you think the number one mistake was that everybody said?
Dude, I can tell you. My number one mistake, well, I had two big mistakes after my divorce. Um, One was shutting a lot of people out around me. That was my number one, was shutting people out around me who were trying to get close or not trying to get close.
Isolation, brother. Isolation's a
Isolating,
big one.
yeah, isolating. And then the second one was just jumping into um relations or relationships and just being like,
You got it.
you're
You
hot.
got it.
You're hot. You're giving me attention.
Number
Cool.
one. That's what everybody said. Everybody said I went into the next relationship too soon. Everybody. And it didn't matter if it was a day after their divorce, during their divorce, or 2 years later. They all had the same answer. So I
Hmm.
thought that was really interesting. I was like, okay, so this isn't a number. What is it? Well, what is it is because you jump in as a way to try to heal your pain, and that never works. It doesn't.
Yeah,
You have to do it for yourself. You have to do it with yourself.
yeah. Because
So
the
I
world
did
says
that.
the best way to get over someone is to get under someone.
It's the biggest lie
Yeah,
ever.
100%.
And that's what I tried. And it didn't work with that woman. And she was a wonderful person, but it just absolute worst timing, worst motivation, worst everything.
Hmm.
So when that one ended, that's when I was like, screw it. I'm just going out. And then it just happened to coincide. I write about a lot of this in my book. So if you want more of these stories, because they're really good, go pick up a copy of the book and we'll talk about that if we want. But it's right there. So this happened to coincide with the beginning of 2020. If you happen to remember what was going on in the world at the beginning of 2020.
What a lovely time.
So right at the beginning, right near the beginning, my divorce was technically finalized in May, but like February, March, around February, actually, I ended up meeting this group of people that were all very much on a similar journey to me. They were either recently divorced or going through a divorce. And all of us were just in this mode of, we're going to go crazy now. We're going to go party and we're going to have a lot of fun and everything else. So I meet them 1 month before the world shuts down. And then they become my crew during COVID. That was an insane year, brother. That was not just COVID for me. That was not just the end of the marriage for me. That was me just going off the freaking deep end and just trying everything under the sun. And honestly, it made it a lot easier during that early part of COVID because that was the part before like we were restricted from doing anything and everything was kind of shut down, but you still had your little crew that you hung out with.
Hmm.
So I just spent a good 9 months of 2020 just finding new bottoms in my life and having a lot of fun doing it until one day. And this is, I talk about this a lot. I think we all have spiritual awakenings in our
Hmm.
life. There are moments where God or the universe or heart mind or whatever you want to call the spiritual world gets a hold of us and is like, yeah, are you sure you want to be doing this? So I had one of those moments. It was a couple days after what would have been my anniversary, right? Because dates can be insidious. So we're talking, that's the end of August. So it's the early September of 2020. I'm literally in my apartment. You heard that word right as well, right? Because I still haven't landed back on my feet from all of the different things. Still haven't bought another house yet or any of that stuff. I'm in my apartment with my buddy. and I am tripping very, very hard on a couple different specific drugs that I'll just remain nameless. You can reach out to me if you want to know more details. And I am freaking out. I'm seeing demons in the floor. Like, it's just a really one of the worst trips of my life. And I have this moment of clarity in the middle of this terrible experience. And it's just this moment where I just felt like the presence of the entire universe, the presence of God, the presence of my higher power, just kind of whispering in my ear, like, is this you? Like, is this what you want? This isn't you. And it was that moment that I realized, wow, all I'm doing with my pain right now is I'm just trying to ignore it. I'm trying to medicate it. I'm trying to just pretend like it doesn't exist. And honestly, I'm being really selfish. Like, I went through this really bad time of my life and I'm making it all about me. I'm not helping anybody by doing this. No one at all. I mean, the only person present is my friend right here who's also having the same terrible experience I am. So I'm not helping him either. Right. And it was in that moment that I realized I got it. My mission on this planet is to help men in their darkest of days when they're going through this stuff, because I didn't really have anyone helping me. And there's a lot of good intentioned, kind hearted people. I'm not saying that. It's just no one really knew how to help. And frankly, I isolated as well, like you, Jay, where I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
forget it. I don't want your help. And then I realized in that moment, I was like, oh, this is my mission now. Now I understand. What I'm here for, why I'm on this planet, is to help men that have gone through a similar experience become the best version of themselves, to become the most authentic version of themselves. And I realized that before I'd even done it myself, because at that moment I hadn't done it, right? Like, I was finding all the opposite stuff. So then I went
Yeah.
on a really, really healing journey for about a year and just did everything under the sun to try to heal. And, I'm still healing. I'm still working. I'm still recovering. I'm still trying to become the best version of myself. But man, I'm living literally the best life I've ever lived. And I was the guy that thought that, like, after my marriage and everything else, my life was over. And
Yeah.
I'm now living the best life that I possibly can and trying to help encourage guys along the way. So
Yeah.
that's my story.
That's cool. So it's it's cool to hear that you went through the redemption arc, right? Even after all of it, being able to redeem yourself is really important. One thing that you mentioned that I think is super important to hit on just a little bit more is that it's not over after those what feels like life altering moments where it feels over, completely over, right? It's not time to give up. It's not time to just throw in the towel. It's really time to do what you did, right? Maybe go on a little bit of a party phase and um, get it all out of your system a little bit. I don't definitely not recommend it, right?
I don't not recommend it though. I mean, like, here's the thing: when you're discovering yourself, one of the things that I help the men that I coach with is like, look, you still be open,
Yeah,
be open, don't be stupid, or maybe be
yeah,
a little stupid, but but you go into it knowing that maybe you'll be a little stupid, just knowing whatever the consequences are of being a little stupid.
yeah,
Like, there's just a couple things that I could think of in my own personal story, right? Like, there's a difference between, I want to experiment with this drug with another person that's in the same place as me, that's already experimented with it, that understands it, that I understand what the consequences are of doing it. That's one example, especially if it's like a lower grade thing that is not as, we're not talking like meth or heroin or something, right? Like
yeah.
something that's less addictive in that
Like
sense.
recreational mushrooms or something.
Sure, mushrooms or weed or something like that.
Yeah,
So there's that side, okay? And then there's the other side of, like, just one small example I could think of, as I'm headed into this festival with a buddy of mine, and it's like a 3-day festival, and we're going through it, and we end up getting searched, and they end up finding a bunch of cocaine on his person that I didn't know that he had. So literally, we're standing there with police all around us, with him holding a bunch of cocaine. Now, is that a big deal? Well, I mean, some people would say, yeah, it's a big deal, but it's more of a big deal for me, just as a side note, because again, like I said, I've been a financial planner for almost 20 years. If I get a felony, I'm done. My entire career is done, like
Yeah.
100% done. No second chance, no excuse, no talking to anybody about it, done. And that the amount that he had would have been a felony even for me, even though I didn't have it, right? Like it was in his person.
Yeah.
So like I'm literally standing there thinking this could be the end of my career as well after I just had gone through my divorce, within the last year, right? This is that same year. So those are two different things.
No, no, I know what you're
Right?
saying, and I can
The
agree with that.
consequences are very, very different. Like the consequences over here of maybe having a little weed or a little mushrooms is like I feel like kind of a little weird for a while. Okay, that's a consequence I can live with. The consequence over here is no, you're also changing your entire career because of the fact that you chose to hang out with this guy that brought this stuff and you didn't have a clear conversation with him. So I'm not even blaming him, dude. I'm blaming myself because I should have had more of a hard line, like we're in my car, these are the rules, make sure that you don't have any of this stuff, right? And I didn't do it because I didn't care because I was having fun.
Yeah. No, I can see that. I can agree with that. I think if you are gonna do, be a little stupid or do those things, know your consequences, know what you're getting into 100%. I think that's important. It's a good tip there. But to know that it's not over and that you can come back from that. You can come back from the divorce. You can come back from your party phase, and you can heal and reset, hit the reset button and start again. So
Can
with
I
after
speak to that real quick
yeah, of
too?
course.
So a couple things that I just want to say to you and to anybody listening, Jay, and that is when you're going through it. And I don't know, Jay, if you ever experienced this, I'm curious, but when you're going through it, the easiest thing to do, or it seems like the easiest thing at the time to do, is to medicate it in whatever way possible. So there's bad medications all around. Like you can't ever try to convince me that something like meth or heroin is good for you no matter what. I don't care
No.
what you say. I'm just not going to be convinced. Could you convince me that working out and working are good? Yes. Could you convince me that relationships are good? Yes. Sex? Yes. Love? Yes. You right. All these things. There's a lot of
Mhm.
those, but those can be just as addictive and just as bad for you as the heroin.
Yeah.
So here's the deal though. We all by nature do not want to do the hard stuff. So if you're there and you're thinking you have hard stuff to do, just realize if you don't want to do it, it just means you're human, man. Like none of us want to do it. Like even the psychos online that are always doing the hard stuff, they don't want to do it either. But they've realized that if I don't do this hard stuff, if I don't sit with these emotions and process through them and really work through them instead of ignoring them, guess what, man? I don't know if you've ever had this experience, Jay, but like if you don't do that, they come back stronger. You ever had that experience where like you have some sort of anger, fear, anxiety, whatever,
Mhm.
you don't deal with it, you medicate it, and then the next time it comes back 10 times as hard? Have you ever had
Yeah.
that experience?
Absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. Because you're not dealing with it. You're not dealing with why it's happening. You're not
And
dealing
it
with
comes back
the
stronger. It just does.
absolutely.
It does. And the other thing that you said that I wanted to touch on, Jay, which is so true, man, is that if you don't feel like you're going to get through it and you just feel like this is more than I can handle, which, man, I've been there more times than I can count.
Yeah.
But what I will tell you is if you do the hard work, you don't isolate, you have brothers around you helping you during this process. You have a coach. We could talk specifically about a coach versus a therapist. Both are good in different circumstances. But if you have these people around you that are helping you, that are loving you, that are walking you through this, and you learn how to do that, what happens is you become more resilient. So let me tell you a little bit about what's happening in my life this very moment. This very moment as we speak, my dad is in a rehab facility for his strength, not rehab for drugs, rehab for his strength, because about a month and a half ago, he had a really bad fall down his stairs and almost died. He ended up in the ICU for a month. We visited him in the ICU for a month. I ended up having to have conversations with my mom about like all the legal work we just got done a year ago of when do we pull the plug? Like I literally had that conversation with my mom, which was freaking brutal, man.
Yeah.
Not a conversation I was ready to have. And my dad's lived a nice long life and everything else, but he's just always been young for his age. He was never near any issues until this happened. So it's been brutal. So why do I bring that up? Why I bring that up is because if I would have gone, if that would have happened to my dad 5 years ago, like I mentioned, when I was during this phase, there's absolutely no way I would have been able to handle it. There's just none. I would have just done even more drinking and drugs and sex and all the stuff. I just would have, because I wasn't resilient enough in my soul to realize, like, how do I process and do these things in a way that's healthy, not only for myself, but then also I can be of service to my dad and my mom and everybody else involved. And man, I'm not going to tell you I did it perfect this time. There's definitely times where I've wanted to medicate and have medicated. I was like, you know what? I just don't want to freaking deal with it tonight. I'm going to have a marijuana gummy tonight. Or I just don't want to deal with it tonight. I'm just going to work a little harder tonight. Or I just don't want to deal with it tonight. I'm just going to watch some Netflix tonight. I've had those moments during the last month and a half. I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. But if I think back on my life 5 years ago, there's no way I could have gotten through this experience. Like, I think I literally would have just gone completely off the deep end. I just don't know. So why do I mention that? That's not to give myself any sort of credit. It's just because I've put in the work. Like, let me put it in different terms. You see anybody that's successful online, right? Any sort of successful business person, let's say worldly successful is what I'm talking about here. So business, money, women, fame, whatever. Anyone that's there, no one got there just by accident. Just no one did. Zero. Because the only people that got there by accident are the ones that were handed money and they all blew it. So all the ones that you see online, zero got it. Just go look at their stories. Usually they don't come from money. Usually they don't have a lot of experience. Usually they just frickin' grind. But why do they get there? Because of the fact that they are persistent and they're consistent in what they're trying to accomplish. What I wish more men understood is that if you're persistent and consistent about yourself and who you are and how you're growing, that's how your entire life changes. It's very, very simple. It's extremely simple. I'll make it as simple as humanly possible. This is maybe the most important thing I've said all day today. And it's this. In order for you to have the life you want to have, Jay, I'll say this to you directly. In order for you to have the life you want to have, brother, there's only two things that you need. You need love and acceptance and care for yourself and a great relationship with yourself. And you need love and acceptance and care and a great relationship with your higher power, universe, God, whatever you want to call it. Those two things and nothing else. No love and validation from a woman, no love and validation from a man, no love and validation from kids, no love and validation from none of that stuff. And I'm not saying isolate from all those people. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the only way to truly become who you need to become is those two things. That's it.
Yeah. No, and I think both those things are super important, right? Because if I look back, like through my divorce and kind of talking back there, you would ask kind of what I did, my coping. I've never been a big um like drug guy or anything. I went and did like some drinking at bars and things like that. At the bar scene with like coworkers and things like that. But really, what I did was I didn't eat. I was drinking caffeine 90% of the day, working all the time. Uh, so I just lost a bunch of weight, right? I lost a bunch of weight. I wasn't eating, wasn't hungry, didn't have an appetite, would stay up really late, get up really early. I didn't really work out a ton because I was working a pretty labor intensive job at the time. And then, I just didn't that was me going through it, not eating, a lot of caffeine, like every time you would see me at that point. Um, Probably in that first like year after like the separation and going through the divorce process, like you would only really see me maybe eat once a day.
Mm.
But then you would always see me throughout the day. Energy drink, energy drink, energy drink, energy drink, all throughout the day. Um, it didn't help that the place where I worked had a cooler. We got a good discount and all that, but that didn't
Sure.
help. But
Yeah.
that's neither here nor there. I would occasionally snack on like little things if I was just starving and it finally got to me. I would eat a bag of chips or something, but other than that, I wouldn't eat a lot. Um, So that was my thing in it. I think it goes to show the point. Like I didn't have that love or acceptance or that love and acceptance of self, right? I also didn't have a I had a I would say a broken relationship um with God. And I wasn't going to church. I wasn't really doing anything. And it took getting back to church, which my aunt had encouraged me to go back and go and do. Um, so I found a church and started going and things like that. And putting those two things together really started to bring me back a bit. Starting to find myself again, starting to get
Why?
back in the
Why do you
gym.
think though? Why?
I think for me, putting those two things together was kind of just the basis of like who I am, like getting God back in my life and getting church back in my life and those things back going again was so important to me because that's just like who I've always been at like the core, right? I've always been like a person of faith, always been a man of faith, and really being able to connect there has always just been something that's guided me and supported me throughout my life. Um, and that's led me to having more, love and acceptance towards myself. That's where like a lot of my healing has come from is just through faith. So
Yeah, and exactly, brother. I mean, you're speaking exactly to what I just said, and it's exactly what you just said. And I want to make sure that people that are listening aren't losing this either. It has nothing to do with. I would say it has nothing to do with the church or the relationships or anything else. It has
mm,
to do with what you just said, and that's your connection to your God or
yeah,
higher power, your connection to yourself. Because it, you mentioned this earlier when you talked about isolation, right? When we isolate people, and I've done the same thing, brother. We isolate people when we don't really want to be connected.
yeah,
We drink alcohol when we don't really want to be connected. Like let's just talk about alcohol for a second because it's so socially acceptable.
yeah,
Alcohol literally is a poison that most of us drink and feel good about. Think about that for a second.
yeah, yeah,
Alcohol, I'm going to repeat it, is literally a poison that most of us drink and feel good about. So why did I decide to stop drinking alcohol? It's not because I'm an alcoholic. I've never been to an AA meeting in my life. So why do I not drink? Because what's the benefit? The only thing that I use it for is to try to like make myself feel a little better. Well, if I can figure out how to do that myself through my relationship with myself and my higher power, then guess what, man? It's a much better place to be.
yeah,
Like just think about all the people. Like I wish I was one of these like spiritual gurus that just like sat around and was just like so content all the time. I'm not that guy. I'm hyper as crap. Like I'm all over the place. Like I don't drink. I stopped drinking caffeine quite a while ago as well for the same reason, just because I found myself just like getting ramped up all the time. Because I get ramped up without caffeine. I don't
yeah,
need the caffeine to just add more anxiety to me, right? So I wish I was one of these just like centered. I'm trying to become one, just this centered kind of spiritual guru. But the thing that I love about any man specifically that I've ever been in their presence of that's like that is because they only have one of two things, like we talked about. They have a really, really good, caring, loving, accepting relationship of themselves and of their higher power. That's it, man. And they're just so at peace within those two relationships, I guess is the best way to say it. Because anytime we're not in peace, let's talk about the opposite. Anytime we're not in peace with those relationships, that's why we do the other things. That's why I go to the bar and try to find the woman to bring home to have sex with. That's why I go and have alcohol. That's why I go and do the drugs. It's because of the fact that I'm uncomfortable with whatever's happening here, and I'm like, I got to get out of this. That's why I work until 3 in the morning every single day and then get up at 7 and do the whole thing all over again and pound energy drinks all day because I'm uncomfortable with what's happening here and what's happening here. Instead of sitting in the nasty, gross pain of it, I'm just going to ignore it and just keep charging forward.
yeah,
And bro,
yeah.
I've done that way more often than I haven't, but I'm learning how not to. And what really helps me too, honestly, like the guys that I coach, I think sometimes teach me more than I teach them about that.
I feel
Because
you.
giving back in service, like I had a mentor say this to me a long time ago, and it always stuck with me. Is he said, if you're ever stuck or feeling miserable or feeling like you're in your own head or you just can't get past it, the best way to get past that is to find somebody to serve. And I love that. Because anytime I get all wrapped up in my own stuff, like, I'll be honest with you, man, the last month and a half with my dad going through what he's gone through, like, I was overwhelmed with a lot of things in life before that. It pushed me even higher, which is also an amazing thing, like I said, because I wouldn't have been able to handle it a few years ago. So that's how the universe works. Like, you only get stuff when you can handle it. So
Yeah.
just realize that if anything's going on in your life right now, you can handle it. Otherwise, the universe wouldn't have given it to you. I promise you, because the universe will not give you something you can't handle. Or in a religious context, it's said the same thing in the Bible. God will not give you more than you can handle.
Yeah.
So it's true. It is really true. Meaning that if you have big problems in your life, celebrate them, because that means that the universe is telling you that you're a freaking stud and you can handle it. Awesome. That's a very different way of thinking versus like, I'm just going to go medicate right now because I can't handle it.
Yeah. No, and I think it's also the same thing said in a religious context as well. You know, when you're in the service of your fellow man, you're in the service of your God. And so there's just something about that service and giving back. That was something
Yeah,
that really helped me.
and that again, by the way, that's not just for some like feeling that you're going to get from them, some sort of validation or something. That is still to the point what we talked about. That's still the way to become the most authentic, loving version of yourself for yourself and your higher power, is by serving others.
Yeah, no, and
But
that's
you're serving
absolutely.
you're again, it's going back to that wife and kids example, right? You're not serving them and doing it just for them. You're doing it so that you can become the best, authentic, most loving human being on the planet. And then the result is that people get served and loved and cared for, which is amazing.
Yeah. And that was something that like super helped me like post divorce when I was really getting back into church. Is I started serving in church. You know, I started serving in children's ministry. I started serving in these other things and really, you know, giving that back, you know, pretty quickly after returning to church and whatnot. Um because I just
You
felt
know,
like that's what was needed, and it's really helped me, you know, all these years later, still doing it and still being a part of those different ministries and whatnot. So
and I love that, brother. I love that. I mean, people can find that wherever they want. Like, I'm not a church guy myself, so I don't find it through that. I grew up in church and I've done plenty of that in my past, but I
gotcha.
find it in other ways. But
Yep.
here's something another mentor said to me a long time ago that always stuck with me. And that this is for everyone listening, this is an encouragement to you. In order to help somebody else, you only have to be a little bit ahead of them on the path.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean better than them, doesn't mean smarter than them, doesn't mean better looking than them, doesn't mean whatever. It just means a little further along in the path. So the reason a lot of men going through divorce or that haven't figured out who they are post divorce come to me is because just a little further along in the path. I only got divorced 5 years ago. It wasn't 20 years ago, right? So some guy that got divorced, let's say 20 years ago, and has done all this work and is way further along than me, maybe he's the one that I need to look up to, right? We all just follow the person that's a little bit, and that's actually honestly like a lot of what I talk about in my book as well. Is just these different aspects of how can we just help and serve and continue on the path.
Yeah. Sorry, there was a spider on the wall that I hit and I didn't square it up. So now it's like on my desk. But no, I
You know
agree.
what's really funny about that, Jay? I was on a call with a lady the other day that the exact same thing happened, and she just was like looking the entire time. And you just showed me a great difference between guys and girls, because she was just like, she called in her partner, had something like, it's like a 50-something-year-old woman, right? And versus you just get it. I just think it's
Yeah.
hilarious. I don't know what the thing is with spiders. Like,
I didn't square it up.
why do
I
most
didn't square it up
women
with the
like,
shoe.
why are most women like so scared of spiders and
I
most
don't
guys
know.
don't care? I don't know.
I
It's
don't
something
know.
in our biology. I don't get it. I don't
Something.
understand.
Because we're cavemen,
Yeah.
at the core. Um, but no, cool. But no, I feel bad. I didn't square it up. So to the dads listening, I'm sorry. I didn't give it a good smack because I didn't want like a big smack to be heard in the background all of a sudden and to throw things off
No worries.
because that would have been bad. But now it's like curled up and like I don't see it. I think it's just on its last its last leg. Um, anyways, with that, let's jump into the dad zone, shall we? And then we'll start to wrap this thing up.
Say that one more time.
Let's jump into the dad zone and then we'll wrap this thing up.
Okay. What's the dad zone?
There it is. All right, so the dad zone is 4 questions that I designed at the end of the podcast to bring us down from the conversation or to bring the conversation to a good clean stopping point to kind of reset the listener to give them some fun at the end of the show. Because sometimes we go really deep, sometimes we get really heavy, so it's nice to have a little bit of fun and maybe a little bit of controversy as well. So the first question in the dad zone is, does pineapple go on pizza?
Absolutely not. I'm
Yep.
Italian. No.
Perfect. Perfect. See, every time I talk to someone that's Italian or a pizza shop owner, it's always no. It's always no.
I should preface I'm half Italian. Everybody thinks I'm Irish because I look like a freaking leprechaun. I get it. But no, I mean, no. I mean, I don't give a I don't care what you put on your pizza, man. Put cucumbers on it for all I care. I don't care. I'm just saying that's not authentic pizza. That's
Thank
my
you.
opinion.
Thank you. Thank you. Who are 3 people, dead or alive, that you'd like to invite over to have dinner with you?
Man, I can only pick 3.
Only 3 for this party.
3 dead or alive that I want to have over for dinner. Let's think. I mean, it's hard not to say Jesus, right? Like, I don't know. The guy just seems so.
I don't know. I've had 2 religious people on the last 2 shows before ours, and neither one of them said Jesus, which I was like shocked by.
I mean, I just think he would be fascinating to be around.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that honestly, I'm going to start sounding really religious here, even though I already told you that I'm not even a church guy. But I even think my namesake would be interesting, Joshua. Like
Yeah.
that guy he was the worst growing up. You want to know why? If you've ever read, if no one like, I don't care if you're religious or not, go read the book of Joshua. And here's the reason why: that dude did not have one thing recorded about him that he did wrong ever, not one. Do you realize that, Jay?
Yeah.
Go back and read it or go chat GPT it and prove me wrong. I promise you. So what I had to live up to with that namesake is insane.
Yeah. High
But I
bar.
just think he was just a very interesting guy. Let's pick a non-religious person now. Man, I don't know how to pick just 3. That's such a good question. Actually, I would really, this one's out of left field, but there's a guy named Stefan Arnio that wrote a bunch of books. He wrote my favorite book about being a man ever. And he died a few years ago. I think he would be really fascinating to talk to.
Love it. What is your guilty pleasure food?
Dude, I am a massive inner fat kid. Massive inner fat kid. Like, not on the outside, but I'm the guy that just wants to like eat the Oreos and Doritos and Taco Bell and all that stuff all the
Love it.
time, even though it would make me sick and I'd probably end up in the hospital from it now because
Right.
of how I eat. So all of that stuff, bro.
I love it. What is one piece of, this is the last question in the dad zone. What is one piece of advice that you would offer to a new dad, age 18 to 22, just starting out his fatherhood journey?
That was a really great question, as 2 of my 3 kids just walked into my room and I'm looking at them right now.
The,
I think the advice that I would give is similar to what we talked about before. And that is, do everything that you can to learn how to love yourself and have a good relationship with yourself and have a good relationship with your higher power. Because the more you do that, the more it's going to emanate to your kids and the more you can love them.
I love that. All right, so to wrap this thing up for us, one thing I do at the end of every show, right before we go to a little call to action, is a CTRA, a clear takeaway, reflection, and action for the listener. So the takeaway I want you to take from this episode this week is you can't rebuild your life until you stop pretending it's not broken. The reflection that I want you to think about between this episode and the next, and then leave any comments on, and of course the show notes, descriptions, Spotify, YouTube, is what have you been running from? Failure, forgiveness, or responsibility? And the action that I want you to take is to write down one truth you've been avoiding and one thing you can do this week to face it head on. That's where rebuilding starts. So that's your CTRA. If you want to go back and hear it again, rewind the last 35 seconds and you'll catch it again. And then to wrap this thing up all the way, I'm going to share the screen here so that you can get a little bit more of Josh and his work. So let me get this up. So this is the derelict coaching, divorce coaching, that you can go and look on here. But then if you just look through his really cool little website here, you can go to the home and you can find all the things that Josh has to offer right here at THEDERELICT.biz, BIZ. You get the homepage, podcast, resources, sales.
Just have everybody go to xderelict.com. So exderelict.com. And there you'll also see my new book that's coming out here very, very shortly. It'll be out probably by the time this podcast is out. The Gospel of an Ex-Derelict. Check it out. It's a really good example of just memoirs, my stories, but it's also very practical. So every single chapter has questions for you to go through, for you to like consider your own life to try to become the best version of yourself. So best website. Thank you very much again for sharing all that. Exderelict.com.
Love it. Well, Josh, thank you so much for joining me today and reminding us that redemption doesn't come easy, but it's always possible. If this episode spoke to you, share it with a brother who needs it. And until next time, I hope you enjoyed your juice box. I hope you enjoyed your snack. Make sure to pick up your trash and throw it away so the wife doesn't yell at you. And until next time, right here on the Young Dad Podcast.